This is Pod Save America. Mehdi Hasan discussing AOC endorsing Joe Biden and voting for Biden versus third-party candidate. This is Mehdi Hasan. I guess he's on Pod Save America. So let's listen. I'm curious to see what this is about. It's a 3-minute clip. Let's listen.
I interviewed AOC a few weeks ago, asked her if she'll be supporting Joe Biden in the primary. She said she would. It predictably led to a bunch of blowback from the very online left. We also have Cornel West giving...
We were one of them. We were part of the blowback. And understand there's certain phrases that the establishment, in particular, the left establishment uses, and they mean it as a slur. Online left is one, as if the people who are online and left aren't real people in real life. So that's one. And then activists. Those are the two terms they use. They mean it as a slur if you don't pick up on it. But let's listen.
Disappointed leftists a place to go. Yep. I know you've had...
Let me rewind it so we can hear the full context.
I interviewed AOC a few weeks ago, asked her if she'll be supporting Joe Biden in the primary. She said she would. It predictably led to a bunch of blowback from the very online left. We also have Cornel West giving disappointed leftists a place to go. Yep. I know you've had your criticism of Joe Biden here and there. What do you make of all this? How are you feeling about his election prospects? What do you say to disappointed folks on the left?
It's a great question. I saw some of that ridiculous blowback to the AOC stuff. I'm torn because I could talk about all the good things he's done. We talked about the economy. There's a lot of bad things he's done.
So Mehdi Hasan says the blowback that AOC received about literally on the first day announcing that she's going to be supporting Joe Biden. And I know it was on the same day that it was the same day that of the announcement of the cluster bombs. So the blowback she received, Mehdi Hasan is calling it ridiculous, even though she knew she was being used to make this sort of endorsement of Joe Biden to cover up the news about the cluster bombs and munitions. So that's what Mehdi Hasan labels as ridiculous.
Done, especially on the foreign policy front. Don't get me started on Israel, Palestine, Netanyahu. Don't get me started on MBS.
This guy is such a sellout. But let's listen.
Disappointed folks on the left.
I'm curious to hear what he says about Israel here.
Ridiculous blowback to the AOC stuff. I'm torn because I could talk about all the good things he's done. We talked about the economy. There's a lot of bad things he's done, especially on the foreign policy front. Don't get me started on Israel, Palestine, Netanyahu. Don't get me started on MBS. A conversation for another day. I've been very critical. And healthcare. I think he's dropped the ball on that. But let me just on the election front, I am torn because on the one hand, I am one of those people who, like yourself, says, come on, you cannot vote third party when fascism is at the door. We have a two-party system. A vote for a third-party candidate helps the fascists. But I've been consistent on that. In fact, I had Noam Chomsky on my podcast years ago before 2020 saying.
So Mehdi Hasan is saying he's been consistently against the working class and poor building any sort of alternative to the red-blue game. He's been consistently status quo. And he's gleefully saying that because obviously on Pod Save America, that would play well. Because they're all about the status quo. But let's continue.
When fascism is at the door. We have a two-party system. A vote for a third-party candidate helps the fascists. But I've been consistent on that. In fact, I had Noam Chomsky on my podcast years ago before 2020 saying, yeah, you got to vote Democrat. Even Chomsky came out, which he does every 4 years, to be fair to Noam. He comes out and says, you got to vote for the Democrat. Republicans are to the climate. Even Noam gets it from the left. Having said that, I'm also someone who sees himself as a person on the left. I am very disappointed in many things about our economy, our healthcare, our foreign policy, things that the Democrats have failed on or turned a blind eye to. So I get the disappointment as well. Now, the argument then becomes to the people who are disappointed, you can say justifiably, you can't really vote for a third-party candidate. That will let Trump back in. On the other hand,
they haven't gotten over this thing that they just, it's kind of offensive. They just assume that everybody's on board with this notion we all have to keep Trump out of the White House. I'm not on board with that. I'm on board with we all have to keep Joe Biden, any Democrat, Donald Trump, and any Republican out of the White House. That's the complete sentence for me and my comrades, in my community. But it's this notion that, come on, and you can see it on CNN, MSNBC, when they bring on people like Cornel West or people who like Cornel West. They'll go, "Come on, do you want to see Donald Trump get reelected?" As if this is all everybody's top priority. This is all everybody's master plan is to keep Donald Trump out of the White House, and it's not. It's not mine. But let's continue.
If they're the kind of people who are going to let Trump back in, what are you offering them? Right? It's a two-way street. On the one hand, the left has to understand what the greater threat is, and it is fascism. I mean, Cornel West said that in 2020. What's interesting is Cornel West, while he backed Jill Stein in 2016, in 2020, he endorsed Biden, saying fascists are at the door.
Mm-hmm. Tell the complete story, because we had him on here in many shows. He says he was wrong about that now. And he goes on to further say, what I now understand is milquetoast neoliberalism that we get from the Democratic Party is just a holding place for fascism to eventually take over. So
that argument is fairly straightforward. But if, on the other hand, if you have a lot of liberals and centrists saying, "Oh, look at these lefties, they let Trump win," well, if the lefties are that influential that they can let Trump win, maybe you should do a little bit more for the left, I would say.
Yeah. No, look, I think, you know, the piece that criticized AOC in New York Magazine was like, you know, they accused her of appearing on an episode of Pod Save America where the hosts were saying that a vote for anyone but Joe Biden was a vote for Donald Trump. And I saw that, I was like, well, that is true. That is
So obviously he's a little offended by the article, the AOC. I think it's the AOC left has not accomplished anything. So he's obviously offended by that. But anyway, let's now go back to the video and let it finish out. But that's what he's referring to. We covered that article. That article was spot on. Spot on. So let's continue.
That is a true statement. Now, if I was going door to door and I came across people who were unsure who they were going to vote for, who maybe thought they might want to vote third party, I wouldn't bully them. I wouldn't say like, hey, if you don't want to vote for Joe Biden, you're putting Donald Trump back into office, and that's that. And what are you crazy? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think that.
Literally, because we covered this when AOC did do it, and that's literally what you said. You guys chuckled about it. You said it works. You said vote shaming works. That's exactly what y'all said, and y'all laughed about it. But now that you have Mehdi Hasan on here, who may be to your left, but to our right, far right, now you want to act like it was a little bit softer.
And you're putting Donald Trump back into office, and that's that. And what are you crazy? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think that's the best way to approach it. I think the best way to approach it is like, hey, you're free to do whatever you want. If you really care about abortion, democracy, healthcare, wages, climate, you have a better chance of seeing progress on these issues with Joe Biden over Donald Trump. And
that's not telling me it's going to be better. You're saying I have a better chance. Listen to the wording. It's a better chance isn't saying it's going to be better. You have a chance to be better.
And it is very, very, very difficult, almost impossible, to see a third-party person winning in the screwed-up system that we have.
They keep talking about winning. No one, and make this clear, at least no one here on RBN, and we've made this explicitly clear, even in the interviews with Cornel West, no one's saying he's going to win. We have to be honest and frank with our own community and not lie. As socialists, as Marxists, as communists, it's our job to be upfront and frank with the working class and poor. And that's not what this candidacy is about. The candidacy is about starting to build outside of the red-blue duopoly